In 2015, John St. Julien opened the doors to Feather's Tail Children's Village to help alleviate the suffering of special needs children he witnessed in Tanzania. Feather's Tail successfully provides a safe and loving home to over 170 people, proving that every disabled child can have their quality of life drastically improved. John and his team are now expanding to new areas to help more children living in crisis with the help of our wonderful donors who make this work possible. The second children's village is now in the works and will become the blueprint to eliminating the suffering of every special needs child in Tanzania and beyond. The self-sustainable village will be home to over 300 children within the 4 children's homes. The therapy center will focus on providing the best care possible using physical and cognitive therapies. There will be separate houses for single parents with disabled children. The single mothers will have the opportunity to become caretakers of other children as they likely qualify highly for this work. We have a long way to go to complete the village, and we're working hard to gather the resources to move on to the next phase of the project. And if you feel called to help us build our second children's village, visit www.sharetanzania.com/invisible children and see how you can help partner with us on this project today.
I have a controversial topic to simply discuss the possibility of here together. When I speak and make these videos, I hope that they bring people back to the truth of the presence of God. Presence first. God cannot build a relationship with you unless you are present. That's always going to be the case. Logically speaking even, if you wish to live as Christ lived, you must ensure that you are attentive to your life, meaning you must be present. For if not, you will miss the needs that are around you if you are tangled in the pursuit of your own desires in the future, or you are unconsciously overindulging in pleasure. If you are not attentive and present, which is where the presence of God gives us our peace and our joy, then you cannot be in service. It's impossible. And yet, as you stay present, you begin to have certain events happening that make no sense. And as you stay present, you also begin to see things that make you question the hand of a very powerful and non-compassionate force inside our world. I'm going to ask the question, does a global elite, a planetary elite, a cabal, a collection of societies and powers that are serving a spiritual master that is not the Christ, have they developed the capacity to manipulate not only the weather, but to cause earthquakes? These topics sound conspiratorial, and I don't particularly want to speak into them, but I can't ignore the synchronicity that I passed through the other day. If you watched my last video, you will know that on the 8th of September I was speaking about Revelation, speaking about the mark of the beast. And as I felt compelled, as I was mentioning the numerological significance of this mystic text in the Bible, Revelation, I felt a pull to speak about the numerology surrounding world events and what is the origin of that. That the way by which I perceive it is that the presence of God, the reality we are in, as I've often said, has two programmers. It has the source, God, Christ, and that brings into this reality the source code. But now we have the adversary, the fallen element of this reality, and it too is sending fallen codes into this reality. And so the mathematical workings of life, which they are there, we are aware that they are there. Everything is geometry and frequency, and there is mathematics within there, numbers within there, has sacred elements from the source code. And I ask the question, are a satanic cabal, a ruling power? We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but spiritual wickedness in high places, a spiritual enemy of the Christ, manipulating consciousness, manipulating humanity by hacking certain times and dates to create pain and suffering and chaos at sacred times. During this video that I made, I spoke into earthquakes, and I mentioned that there is discussion that there is a weapon that can affect the tectonic plates of the planet called High Active Auroral Research Project, and these antenna fields exist all around the world. They are in the States, they are in Russia, they are in Europe, they are everywhere now. And back when I was deeply entrenched in trying to understand the occult, before I was called to Africa, before I was given my purpose in service to be my highest good, which we should all be aiming for, we should not analyze constantly our reality. If you do, you become weak. You become paralyzed, motionless. You can analyze everything forever. You must move into faith at some point, however. Only your arrogance will keep you analyzing. Analyzing is your attempt to understand this reality and the spiritual power behind it that is negative, and also the Christ which is trying to deal with that. You must accept that you don't know. You will never be all-knowing, and so you can never attain enough information. So faith, connecting to the Christ and allowing the Christ to say, this is your path, go all in. This is your only hope. Our only hope is individuals doing that. In 2011, when I was looking at this and I was studying numerology, I saw a numerological pattern. And this pattern involved Masonic power numbers, 9, 11, 22. On the 22nd of the 2nd, 22211, 22nd of the 2nd, 11, 2011, Christchurch was hit with an earthquake. These are the ones I remember. It's not fresh in my mind. On the eve of the 11th of March 2011, I stated to everybody I knew pretty much, there will be a natural disaster tomorrow, and I don't know where, but I know it's coming. And everyone thought I was crazy until I woke up and the tsunami hit Japan. Now this was not prophetic. This was following numerology and believing that a satanic cabal was using this weapon to gain control over certain elements of the planetary structure. A cabal so well hidden that it wouldn't matter to them if China dominated the world with Russia or if the USA dominated the world. It would not matter to them. It is irrelevant. It is these spiritual powers inhabiting humanity that are playing this out. On the 11th of May, the aftershock. On the 11th of April, the aftershock hit Japan. And on the 11th of May, which was very unlikely, there was a huge earthquake in Spain which caused damage. This pattern kept coming, and I was predicting it based upon only the numerology and the notion intuitively that there was a satanic cabal using this weapon. I spoke about this on the 8th of September, the eve of 9/11. I also mentioned how these dates show up around things like 9/11, the terror attack, where a building with 111 floors fell to the ground like dust, and nobody understood how, ultimately, unless you believe the narrative, which even thousands of architects have gotten together and said, this is nonsense. Something made that building fall. I mentioned that in the West, many countries hold a minute's silence on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, because that is the time and date when they called off World War II. A cabal so entrenched it wouldn't have mattered to them if the Nazis ruled or if the Allies had ruled. This is what I'm getting at. It's a spiritual force that does not care. So long as the humans in positions of power don't connect to the Christic, they can inhabit them. They don't care how it plays out. But they do care that humanity exists. For if humanity exists, to some degree with some comfort and development, they can use them to extract the energy that is precious to them. The life force of man, the soul essence of man, is sold into the pocket of the satanic energy extraction matrix. And that energy is feeding those which were denoted as the fallen ones biblically. The fallen ones who serve a master, and the master's only goal is to be God itself. And so you must presume that they have technology, for we use it well. You must presume that they need energy to fuel this sojourn of becoming God. And you must presume, therefore, that the one true source of all creation isn't going to freely give it to them. In the same retrospect and manner that I am lit up with vitality after I've been fasting and praying and centered in a state where I am not overindulging in consumption of the gift of the energy that I'm consuming to allow my vitality. When a human falls into perversion and gathering worldly desires, this comfortable prison cell, they need more and more and more. And they become a fuel cell, surrendering their energy into this extraction matrix. When a human separates from the presence of being consciously aware, when they fall into the space of pursuit of nothing but selfish desire, which majority are well aware of what that feels like, there is a kind of severance from the light, the vitality of the Christic, of God. You see it in addicts. Now, there may be a way whereby those who serve the enemy don't lose that vitality. And the way by which I see that is when they made a pact with the devil to say, okay, I am going to attain for you as much of that soul essence from the innocent humans of earth as possible. And so you have pop stars who make a pact with the devil and they sing, which is like casting a spell, and that brings people to focus on the flesh. And when you focus on the flesh, you sell your soul essence into the hands of that energy extraction matrix. When you look at that as a fact, you see it in addicts. They look dried up. They look disheveled. The vitality is gone from them. You feel the contracted need to consume, like a parasitic energy. I must consume, I must lie to you to get what I want, I must have this. It's like a small black hole, a bottomless pit of desire is what it is. And you can therefore only, I feel, presume that the same issue faces the fallen. The fallen ones have that also. And as they have that, they have to find a solution For their only goal is to try to be God, to mimic God. Their master, as it is said, Satan, if you use this metaphorically or whatever, wishes not to yield to God in faith and unite, but to be it. That's the whole point of the original sin, the fall, the pride, the want for Lucifer to be God. The fallen ones are part of that sojourn. They need an energy source. And it would seem that the light of God, which dwells inside every man, is extracted from man when we use our free will to focus on the path of the flesh, as Jesus called it, the path of the ruler of this world who offers you selfish desire, selfish pleasure, and not the path of spirit, which is not about selfish will and self-desire. It's about the collective. It's about others before you, even. One is noble and one is just decrepit. Flesh is decrepit. And so on the 11th hour of the 11th day, the 11th month, for example, humanity is generating this somber remembrance energy. And on this very powerful time of the source code from the original programmer, God, Christ, of this reality. And there is discussion whether we hack reality with that. And this is why these numbers keep showing up. This is why events happen for the spiritual wickedness, we can call it, the fallen ones. They don't mind who they inhabit. They don't mind if they inhabit the US government or a terrorist, so long as it plays out that they create this chaos. And they can only inhabit them when humanity believes that it is personal self and personal history, when it does not become spiritually reborn. This Morocco earthquake took place at 11:11 p.m. on the eve of the 9th of the 9th. 9/11, 9/11. Sacred times, sacred dates, chaos ensuing, suffering ensuing. And not only that, but now there are many news stories that there were strange lights in the sky above Morocco before the earthquake started, and they don't know why. But if you, as I have been watching this for a while, you would know those lights have been appearing quite a bit in the sky above earthquakes. In China, in Haiti, the sky was changing colour constantly before the earthquake, and everybody was asking why. And of course all of the footage of this is buried on the internet, but I know it exists because I've seen it. And this is likewise when you look at the sky today. When I was a child, I drew the sky. How many of you drew crisscross zigzag clouds like a checkers board on the sky? How many of you knew a sky so filled with supposedly contrails that turn into clouds that you drew them? None of you, because it wasn't happening. Because something different is happening in our sky, and many call it chemtrails. Contrails always existed, but they disappeared. They didn't form cloud cover that blotted out the sun for the rest of the day, or arguably allowed for the transit of changing in weather patterns, etc. All of this must be questioned. And unless we are present, and unless we are lovingly aware of every passing moment and every event coming, we cannot see and investigate any of this. The reason for that is, if you look at it from anything but love and peace, you look at it from restricted energy. You can't feel your way into things synchronistically, intuitively, unless you have peace. And if you want to look at world events happening with absolute clarity of mind, you must be able to look without your memory. You must be able to look from the present moment, not through analysis and your own sweat and grind, but by finally surrendering your intelligence into the hands of Creator as it was always born to be. If you wish to serve Christ in this world, you must walk through your day present in loving awareness. You must. If not, you will be unconscious as you walk down the street and you will miss the person who needs help. The more vibrantly filled with Christ a man is, the more present they are with this moment and this moment alone. They do not run to their memories of pleasure and then chase them. They do not chase anticipation of pleasure in the future. They are vibrantly here, and their life interacts with them completely differently, for there they are alive. And when you run off into the duality of your mind, instead of being present and aware, then you run off into the fallen state. And the God of this world, the ruler of this world, the one creating so much chaos, it relies on humanity. It relies on you believing that you are a personality, a personal history, and not a child of God that is here to represent the love of God and therefore moves as loving awareness surrendered to the will that speaks to it through there. And it is by living my life as nothing more than a state of persistently aiming for being a blank canvas that doesn't know anything. Humble in a sense, without saying I'm humble, because then you lose it, but humility is a state of consciousness that I've seen where you become nothing but lovingly aware of this present moment. No agenda, no belief, no arrogance of I know what this is. Just there. A human that represents that alone, that gentle, loving awareness state. There, everything is revealed at the pace whereby which you are ready to receive it. And why this synchronicity happened, I don't know, other than I was always going to speak about it, for I would lack integrity if I do not. And so I pose the question, is a satanic cabal using the weather, using earthquakes, to make parties around the world come into their bidding? Morocco doesn't have great relations with NATO, doesn't have great relations with that cabal. Nor does Nigeria at present, who is very nearby. Both have been afflicted with adverse weather. Haiti has not recovered from that earthquake, where the sky changed colour. I'm not fear-mongering. I'm asking a very logical question. In our world, if you walk around as a Christian, a Muslim, a Jew, a Buddhist, a Hindu, a Sikh, a Jain, all of these faiths speak of a deceiver. All of these faiths speak of a deceptive force. How deceptive is it? And why must that deceptive force play by the limitations of your goodness? I used to break the law. I used to deceive people. I have been all things unholy, and if God can work through me, he can work through anyone, as St. Francis of Assisi said, and I fully agree with. When you are a deceiver, when you tiptoe into this realm of, hey, I can deceive people to get my own way, you have no conscience. There is no goodness with you to direct you. It's gone. It's gone. It's all about meanness, selfishness. If deception is present, if Satanists are present, if societies that started the biggest political parties in the UK and started the biggest economic schools in the UK use the emblem of a wolf undressing from sheep's clothing, then you must know that deception is here. And because deception is here, and it is not limited by the boundaries of your goodness and your purity, we must investigate how far it is willing to go and how much it is willing to do to get its own way. For the ends justify the means, as they say. And people have spoken and said, there's surely not that much dark in the world. I've been helping children who were targeted for child sacrifice. For the last 10 years, that darkness exists. These people are killing children for material gain, for only the promise of material gain. A witch doctor tells them, yeah, murder and torture this child, this innocent child who can't flee because they're disabled. You do that, and you'll get a reward from a demon, from Satan. And they do it on that promise alone. Not that there's a room filled with riches and they say do it and you can have that. On the promise. Humans have the ability to be dark. And your leaders have the same capacity. And if I'm right, which I believe I may be, then they've dropped the two towers. They caused the world wars. They caused these earthquakes to manage human consciousness toward a one world order. As has always been the plan and the sojourn of every single great civilization, from the Mongols to the Romans. They've always tried to have a one world government. And you may say, why would humans do that just to achieve that? Because it's not the humans doing it. It's those who live profoundly long lives. Our history that spans generations from the 1700s till today might only be a fragment of the adult life of that spiritual wickedness that is doing this on this planet. And when we get our minds free and accept that this is a possibility, then somehow many things start to make a little more sense. Or at the very least, it sets us free to question. To be free, to have our mind totally free, not indoctrinated, totally free to investigate and question and inquire. Not only about the external world, but about ourselves. And when we gain that power to inquire about the world and about who we are, freedom is guaranteed on that path. I will leave it there. There is a lot of flight traffic for some reason, unexpectedly. I send you my love. Be well. Bye.